Welcome back to Cossy Arsenal Podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. Declan Rice has evolved at Arsenal, and I tell you what, we have one of the best midfielders in the Premier League now. Now, we're going to be diving into how Declan Rice has improved already in this Arsenal system. The deep six, the creator, the box-to-box, the free roll, and the interceptor. This guy is everywhere for Arsenal. This guy is doing absolutely everything for Arsenal. But one of the things I've loved about Declan Rice is that now we can use Alexander Zinchenko without worrying. How is that? We're going to be diving into those tactics and why I think Declan Rice eventually is going to become more like Rodri, a much better player like Rodri, but as important as Rodri at Manchester City. If you like these videos, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast as well. Let me know in the comment box below. Declan Rice, would you prefer him to play in that Xhaka role last campaign, or would you prefer him to play where he played against Man United, that kind of number 6, deep 6, but free role? He can drift into that left back position to cover for Alexander Zinchenko. Then he comes into the penalty area, by the way, lots of the time to find those goal scoring opportunities. He was also on the same line as Odegaard, trying to thread balls through for the likes of Kai Havertz, for the likes of Martinelli, for the likes of Edin Ketia, and you love that. You absolutely love that from a £100 million signing. So how has Mikel Arteta evolved Declan Rice, and why is he going to become a very lethal punisher in the Premier League this campaign? So one thing we have seen with Mikel Arteta this campaign is he loves to play Declan Rice on the left-hand side of this midfield, and at times then Thomas Partey plays on the right-hand side of the midfield. But now with Thomas Partey gone, with Thomas Partey injured for 8 weeks, what we saw against Manchester United was Declan Rice shifting into this position around here, making him the single pivot in that game. Or was he actually the single pivot? Actually, the big question in this game, was Declan Rice even the pivot at all in the whole of the game? So what Mikel Arteta has done, because he realizes the potential, he realizes the quality Declan Rice has as a player, you cannot just play him as a DM. You just can't play. He's not your Wilfred Ndidi. He's not your, Ibrahim Sangare. He's more than that. He's a DM, but he can do many other things. And in a system like Arsenal, where you're not going to have to defend more, but you're going to have to be on the ball more, Declan Rice just playing the ball side to side and, waiting for the attack of the opponent, that might actually not be the best thing to do. Now, this campaign, Declan Rice is already dropping in terms of interceptions and ball recoveries. The reason is very easy. It is not because he's declining. It's because Arsenal literally are always on the ball. So you look at all these other, defensive midfielders, at Nottingham Forest, the likes of Yates, their numbers are really high. They're doubling the numbers in terms of ball recovery more than Declan Rice, because they're always on the back foot. So Declan Rice, interceptions going down, ball recovery is going down, but there is something increasing in his game, okay? And that is what you guys have to see. So Declan Rice playing in this position right here for Arsenal against Manchester United meant that Arsenal would then have the option to bring in Alexander Zinchenko into the team. So we're gonna swap Tomiyasu right there, and then bring in Alexander Zinchenko. Let's just name Alexander Zinchenko this white pawn. So because Alexander Zinchenko comes into the side, he loves to drift into midfield. Obviously, it is predictable. That is what Arsenal do. Zinchenko drifts into midfield to form a double pivot with Declan Rice. He did that last campaign a lot of the time with Thomas Partey. This allows Kai Havertz to move further forward into the penalty area. Actually, like we saw against Man United, he was making those runs into the penalty area lots of the time. But it also allows, and this is crucial, it allows Odegaard to regain his position as a number 10, as a classic number 10. I will wait patiently outside the penalty area for that ball to drop. And when it dropped from Gabriel Martinelli, the rest is history. So Declan Rice then allows Arsenal play Alexander Zinchenko by inverting him into the midfield, because Declan Rice is such an industrious player, he's such an industrious guy. So he's got the ability to cover in this area, and in this area. So he can cover behind Odegaard, he can cover behind Kai, he can cover for Alexander Zinchenko, and he can cover for Ben White as well. Where do you get such a signing? Where do you get such a player? Only in the Premier League at the Emirates Stadium for Arsenal. So, but again, this is how Arsenal overpowered Man United, and this is what Alexander Zinchenko and Declan Rice are going to be doing all campaign. So what we saw from this game is Declan Rice actually not being the pivot that Manchester United could have expected. So he was not playing as the deepest part of the midfield. Alexander Zinchenko was. So Alexander Zinchenko was literally the guy at the first phase of build-up. Just like Thomas Partey was doing last campaign, picking up the ball, turning and progressing the ball. Rice is not yet there yet, in my opinion. So what Arsenal did, and this is very genius of Mikel Arteta, we're going to understand why. So he plays Zinchenko, and Zinchenko is concerned with the start of build-up. So you saw Alexander Zinchenko a lot of the time in this area here around Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard forming that extra triangle. But again, you saw him in these areas around here, on the right, on the left, and also in the middle of the pack. So Alexander Zinchenko literally was playing a free role, and he was playing as well as a midfielder. He didn't actually play at left back. He actually didn't. And of course, him inverting into midfield, it meant that because Anthony loves shifting, so let's get one more player here, shot number maybe 7. Right, so because Anthony wants to drift into the midfield because he loves cutting inside, he was always going to meet Alexander Zinchenko ready, and that comes from the fact that Declan Rice can cover for Alexander Zinchenko on the left-hand side. This is very crucial, and this is going to be very, very key when Arsenal play with Rice and Zinchenko. So because Zinchenko played in midfield, because Zinchenko took up that role of Thomas Partey, he was concerned with building phase. He was concerned with how Arsenal actually progressed the ball. Declan Rice dropped in such instances, and he covered on the left-hand side. And that is what why you saw that Man United did not exploit the space in behind Alexander Zinchenko. Even when Alexander Zinchenko traveled, right, inside the penalty area, even when Alexander Zinchenko came into the midfield, from this position right here, into midfield, Manchester United did not have the option of exploiting the space around here because simply Declan Rice dropped in them. So that is one problem solved, and that's why I've said that Declan Rice, the deep six, because he plays here, he starts off here, but then he literally drops in at left back to cover for Alexander Zinchenko, and it is something that will work for Arsenal because Alexander Zinchenko is a much better progressor of the ball than Declan Rice. Rice is energetic, quick and fast, and therefore he's got the speed and time to actually cover in these areas. So that is how first and foremost Declan Rice is evolving, right? He's he's becoming that kind of player that sits in at left back. We saw it a lot of the time when Gillian Timber was still playing for Arsenal. Rice dropping at left back and Gillian Timber dropping into midfield. But how about the free role? How about that creative free role? Declan Rice, the creator, Declan Rice in that free role. So the first thing we saw in this game was Declan Rice during corners, because he's a defensive midfielder, and this is something that really actually gave me some big problems to understand until I saw and read a couple of tactical analysis. Because Declan Rice is your defensive midfielder, when you are taking a corner and the opponents in the penalty area, you expect him to be in this space here. You expect him to be on this line here. The reason is you do not want them to catch you on the break. You don't want them to, have that space to run in behind. So Declan Rice as your DM is always there. For example, when the ball is, has to be recycled, Thomas Partey is always around this area from corners. However, in this game, that did not happen. Declan Rice was given more permission, especially in such instances, to go further forward and create something very, very different, which actually resulted in the goal from in the 90th minute. I think 98th minute, the assist from Bukayo Saka. So what happened? What happened was Declan Rice walked into the penalty area and picked up a position because he's a defensive midfielder, because he's supposed to be here. No one, absolutely no one, picks him up. Right, and this is something we saw from time and time again. Arsenal had around 10 corners or 11 corners in that game, and Declan Rice was picking up spaces inside the penalty area rather than outside the penalty area, and he was actually being free. He was unmarked. Why Man United didn't focus on a tall, huge player like Declan Rice, I will never understand. But for Arsenal, the tactic actually worked. Declan Rice walking away from the outside the penalty area to inside to find space, to find that little pocket of space where no one is marking. It actually gave us the 3 points at the Emirates Stadium in that game. So he's going to be more of a free roller. He's going to play more of a free role at Arsenal. Like I say, defensively, Arsenal are not going to be on the hook all the time. So what we're going to see is Gabriel Martinelli pushing up a little bit wide, actually very wide. Saka pushing up very wide, but inverting inside. We know that. Odegaard will come back in that little pocket of space. Kai Havertz will come back in that little pocket of space. And Jesus will be here. Arsenal will be attacking with 5 players. Or will they? Because Declan Rice is now trying to fit into that attacking line. He's trying to be, that extra man just to overpower any other team. And this is genius from Mikel Arteta, because most of the teams that we are playing, Burnley, Sheffield, Everton, Fulham, all these teams are actually going to be playing a back 5. So you need an extra player to penetrate this back line. And that's why Arsenal this campaign, rather than what we did last campaign, we are attacking with 6, and we're trying to attack with 6 rather than with 5. It actually works. And because Alexander Zinchenko is going to be around here when we are in possession, and our backline is going to shift across, it means Declan Rice is going to be more of an attack-minded player, as he can also be a defensive-minded player. So the free role for Declan Rice here then, guys, is he can come from this place and just join the attack. He can drop from the attack and drop into left back. He can definitely come back in midfield, and he can also shift to the right-hand side to pair up with Odegaard, Saka, and the likes of Ben White, or just shift to the left-hand side to form triangles with Kai Havertz, Martinelli, and players like Alexander Zinchenko as well. The free roll will allow Declan Rice grow into a more important player for both Arsenal and England as well. Now, there is a statistic, a metric actually, that I've looked at, and I'm surprised. Declan Rice, this campaign, actually, just in the Manchester United game alone, he lost the ball 5 times trying to pass into the final third. What do I mean by that? And why is it such a positive good thing? So it's a positive good thing because literally, if Declan Rice is losing the ball in the middle of the park, Arsenal will be in trouble, because he's the guy responsible for breaking up plays, the guy responsible for making sure that Arsenal do not lose the ball in midfield and don't concede. But what he's trying to do, he's trying to play these passes into Kai Havertz. He's trying to play these passes into Gabriel Jesus. He's trying to play these passes into Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard. So that's what he's trying to do. He's losing the ball in deeper in the opposition half, because he's trying to do something he was not doing last season at West Ham, and that is actually his new role. The new role of Declan Rice this campaign is literally to be everywhere, but because he doesn't have a lot of defensive responsibilities on his shoulders in games like Fulham, Everton, Sheffield, he's going to have to add to the creativity in the team. And why I would, anyone who's saying the creativity is not there, true, the creativity is not there, but simply because of 2 reasons. Kai Havertz, who's one of the players who should be receiving the ball in the penalty area and creating space, is not yet doing that at the moment, or at least to the levels we want him to. And Declan Rice, the second creator in that team, actually the third creator in that team behind Odegaard And Alexander Zinchenko is still learning how do I find spaces and how do I find my teammates in the spaces they are creating in the penalty area. Eventually, he's going to come around, and that is going to start, working very, very well for us. So he's playing box to box as well. He's playing deep. How about Declan Rice, the interceptor? How has Arsenal and Mikel Arteta improved Declan Rice as an interceptor? So the one example we saw was against Manchester United in the 3-1 win. Man United are in possession, but Declan Rice wins the ball back. He anticipates very well, wins the ball back, and he, transitions. He leads the transition that leads into the huge chance that Kai Havertz misses. So he's become an interceptor simply because in the final third, Arsenal are always in possession. So when we lose the ball higher up the pitch, he can actually come back and recover. I think this is going to be a much better system as compared to a system where he has to tackle players, where he has to outmuscle players in order to win the ball back. He's much better at anticipating where is the ball going to go, where is the player going to turn to, and where is he turning from. He's better at anticipation, he's better at prediction, and that is how he wins the ball back. At Manchester United, against Man United, 3 out of 3 attempted ball recovery attempts were actually successful. So Declan Rice seems like a huge player for us, and without Thomas Partey, we will be all right until when we play Manchester City. That is going to be the litmus test. That's going to be the real litmus paper.